The battlefield of Korith Prime was a symphony of chaos. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, carving molten scars into ancient stone. The clash between the Vryn Empire and the human-led coalition forces had reached its crescendo, with neither side willing to yield even a single meter of blood-soaked ground. Kayla Thorne moved through the carnage like a specter of war. Her exosuit hummed with kinetic energy as she ducked behind a collapsed pillar, scanning for targets. The HUD in her visor painted the world in tactical overlays, red markers for enemies, blue for allies, yellow for civilians. There shouldn't have been any yellow markers here. This was a military zone, evacuated 3 cycles ago. Yet there it was, a single yellow dot, elevated and moving erratically. Kayla's breath caught. She pivoted, her enhanced vision zooming toward the crumbling remains of a residential tower. On the 5th floor, visible through a shattered window, a small figure clung to a beam that groaned under even its minimal weight. A Vryn cub no more than 4 solar cycles old. Judging by its size, its cobalt fur was matted with dust, and its 6 eyes were wide with terror. "Command? I've got a civilian," Kayla transmitted, already breaking from her position. "Vryn Juvenile, Sector 7, elevated position. Buildings coming down." "Negative, Thorne," the reply crackled. "You're needed on the front line. Extraction teams will." The building shuddered. A support column buckled with a sound like thunder, and the cub lost its grip. Kayla didn't think. She ran. Her boots pounded against rubble as she calculated trajectory, velocity, angle. The cub tumbled through the air, its tiny limbs flailing uselessly. Around her, the battle continued, Vryn warriors firing from entrenched positions. Coalition soldiers returning suppressive fire. A plasma bolt seared past Kayla's shoulder, close enough that her suit's shields flared in protest. She didn't slow down. 3 seconds. That's all she had. Kayla launched herself from a pile of debris, exosuit thrusters igniting mid-leap. The world blurred. She twisted in midair, arms outstretched, eyes locked on the falling cub. Time seemed to crystallize, each microsecond expanding into eternity. Her hands closed around small, trembling body. The impact as they hit the ground together drove the air from Kayla's lungs. Her suit absorbed most of the shock, but she still felt her ribs creak in protest. She rolled, cradling the cub against her chest, shielding it with her armored body as debris rained down around them. And then silence. Not true silence. The battlefield still roared, but something had changed. Kayla lifted her head and froze. Every weapon had stopped firing. Vryn warriors stood in their trenches, rifles lowered, staring. Coalition soldiers had ceased their advance, their weapons pointed at the ground. The entire battlefield had become a tableau of suspended violence. All eyes fixed on the human soldier kneeling in the rubble, holding an enemy child. The cub whimpered in Kayla's arms, its 6 eyes blinking rapidly. She could feel its heartbeat rapid, terrified, but alive. Without thinking, she began to hum softly, an old lullaby her grandmother had sung. The cub's trembling began to ease. A figure emerged from the Vryn lines. General Vraxen. Kayla recognized his distinctive crimson armor and the 3 scars crossing his face. He was a legend. A warrior who had never retreated, never shown mercy. His hand rested on his plasma rifle, but the weapon remained slung across his back. He stopped 10 meters away, his multiple eyes fixed on Kayla and the cub. "You are human," Vraxen said, his voice carrying across the silent battlefield. It wasn't a question. "I am," Kayla replied, not moving from her protective crouch. "We are at war." "We are. Yet you risked your life for a child of your enemy." Kayla looked down at the cub, who had grasped one of her gloved fingers with its tiny hand. "It's a child," she said simply. "The war isn't theirs." Something flickered across Vraxen's face, an expression Kayla couldn't quite read. He was silent for a long moment, the weight of 1,000 watching eyes upon him. Then, slowly, deliberately, he removed his rifle and placed it on the ground. "Warriors of the Vryn," his voice boomed across the battlefield. "Lower your weapons." A ripple of confusion spread through the Vryn lines. But discipline held. One by one, Weapons were lowered, set aside, pointed away from their targets. Vraxen turned to the coalition forces. Humans, your soldier has shown us something we had forgotten in our rage. Honor, compassion, the things we claim to fight for, yet abandon in the fighting. He approached Kayla, each step measured and careful. She tensed, but didn't move. Vraxen knelt before her, reaching out slowly. The cub recognized something scent, perhaps, or the shape of his armor, and reached toward him with small arms. "This is my brother's child," Vraxen said quietly. "He fell in the bombardment 3 days ago. I thought all of his family lost." His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. "You saved more than a life today. Human, you saved my brother's legacy. You saved, hope." He carefully took the cub, holding it with a gentleness that seemed impossible from such a hardened warrior. The cub buried its face against his chest. Finally safe. Vraxen stood, the cub cradled in his arms. "I have spent 2 cycles believing humans were incapable of seeing us as anything but monsters. Today, one human has proven otherwise." He turned to address both armies. "This battle is ended. I will return to my superiors and tell them what I witnessed here. Perhaps there is another way forward." "And if they disagree?" Kayla asked, rising to her feet. "Then I will remind them that a human risked everything to save a Vren child while we, in our pride, would have let it fall." Vraxen's eyes met hers. "What is your name?" "Human. Kayla Thorne." "Kayla Thorne," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "The Vrin do not forget debts. You will always have a friend in Vraxen of the Third Fleet." He turned and walked back toward his lines. The cub secure in his arms. His warriors parted for him. Their expressions transformed shock, contemplation, and something that might have been shame. Kayla watched them go, her heart still pounding. Around her, coalition soldiers began to emerge from cover, weapons still lowered. Her commanding officer reached her first, face unreadable behind his helmet. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen, Thorne." "Probably both, sir," she admitted. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you did it. Reminded me why we're supposed to be the good guys." As the 2 armies began their careful, tentative withdrawal, Kayla looked up at the smoke-stained sky. The war wasn't over. One act of compassion couldn't erase cycles of conflict. But perhaps it had planted a seed, a reminder that beneath the armor and weapons, they were all capable of choosing mercy over vengeance. And sometimes, that choice was all it took to change everything. The battlefield of Koreth Prime fell silent at last, not with the silence of death, but with the quiet hope of possibility.